And Warm Trophy Kids presented by Bad News Media. The wait is over. NFL football is back. So, as always, I am your host, Nate, and my co host, Michael, is back as well. How are we doing today, good sir?
I am fantastic. Doing great. Happy football is back. Got a little cough today. I'll do my best to hit the mute button, but I might forget a time or two. Just letting you know.
It's that weather change. The fall crisp has been in the air these past couple mornings. So I'm with you there. We did not do a preview show like normal. That is my fault. I got bogged down in college football.
Bogged down.
That sport is getting incredibly hard to follow. I'm going to need this transfer portal nonsense to be cleaned up, but that's neither here nor there. So before we dive into every game, because those who might be new to the format, we go through every game each week, give out who we think might win that, or give out our pick potentially. But then we'll let you know which games we're actually putting our money on. That will count towards the overall record. Been a profitable couple seasons. But because we didn't do a preview show, I'm going to open the floor real quick. Any hot take or general thought of the season coming in that you would potentially want to share?
Um, no, nothing like major hot takey. I think we kind of gonna have our usual suspects in the playoffs that we've had. There are a few teams. I know everyone's trying to pick out, who's going to be this year's Houston Texans. I guess I'll give my pick there. I think you got to go with the Bears, just what they've done in terms of bringing in Caleb Williams. They have three legit wide receiver weapons, DeAndre Swift. So, I guess, that's not really a hot take, but the thing right now is who's going to be this year's Texans. So, I'd say it's probably going to be the Bears.
I don't hate that. I don't really. I have a couple takes that I'll filter in as we get to them. My only take, because I haven't, maybe it's been going around. I haven't seen it. I've seen a lot of Packers picks for the Super Bowl. No, 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 no. This is not necessarily a hot take. This is the right take. The Detroit Lions are making the Super Bowl, folks, out of the NFC. That is everything feels like it has been perfectly building to that point. That offensive line is so damn good. Jared Goff, as long as he's playing indoors, and a lot of his games are going to be indoors this year,
Yes.
especially in the playoffs, he's pretty damn good. And defensively, they just, I thought, added some nice key pieces to finally, as long as they can stay healthy, with the way the NFC is shaking up, because I think the wheels are about to fall off the bus in 49er land from an injury standpoint this season. A lot of too many guys missing too many practices this offseason. CMC is already dealing with a bit of an injury. I feel like those wheels might fall off hard towards the end of the season.
I don't hate that. There's a lot of all stars up there in San Fran that let's be honest, they didn't want to participate in training camp. So we'll see. That might come back and burn them. We'll see.
Yeah, a lot of lower leg injuries, I feel like, are headed the 49ers' way, because it feels like that is what happens with everybody who misses camp. But we record this on Thursday, so we don't have the Thursday night show, but it is the Ravens versus the Chiefs that will be getting the season kicked off. But for our purposes, we start with the Packers Eagles in Brazil. Line is at 2, over under 49.5. There has been some movement here on this line. Like I said, coming into the season, the Packers feel like a pretty trendy pick to come out of what is a lackluster conference in the NFC, I think is fair to say at this point. The Eagles have some new faces on their coaching staff, but as always, it is a clown show at the head coaching position. What do we foresee for this game right here?
Yeah, it definitely is a bit of a clown show, the head coaching position there. First of all, I'm not, I don't want to turn this into a bash Brazil segment. I like Brazil. Great people come from Brazil, but the NFL might not want to have a game in Brazil. This is like there's a lot of side stories going on here about security and everything. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just my opinion. They probably, I don't know. But the
It's
game
really interesting
itself,
too. The story that I've seen picking up, Twitter doesn't exist there anymore. Like, what are these NFL reporters who like to get off their Twitter takes going to be doing here? We're going to wait, what, a 24-hour news cycle for them to get back in country? What's going on
you know what? That didn't even dawn on me, but that did just happen. I didn't even think of that. That's a great point, Nate. I have no idea what will happen there. I would strongly advise everyone to follow the laws.
Oh, yeah.
You'll want to get home.
Yeah, that's not a country you want to get stuck in their judicial system.
Yeah, no, you don't want to get involved in that. So this game itself, this is give credit to the NFL. They're starting off with a bang here. Two games, two good games. I think these are both going to be close games. I look at these teams. The head coaching advantage. I don't think we actually give Matt LaFleur enough credit. He loses players left and right, Hall of Famers, and it's just like they're still a good team. So that guy, he definitely deserves some credit. Obviously, he's had some playoff losses that, but still, I just think this Eagles roster, though, I think they're pretty stacked right now. Jalen Hurts, he was definitely injured last year. Still had a great year, but there was something going on there with him. Yeah, I just think this roster is they're just better than that Packers team. I will take the Eagles here. Now, this thing was at 3 not too long ago. If it were to creep back into 3, I do see this as a field goal game. I'd probably go Green Bay. But right now, with this line, I'm taking the Eagles.
I agree with you. Line shopping is always an important message we try to give out on this podcast. Don't get tied down necessarily to one sports book. The one we're using for purposes today is DraftKings, though. No free shout outs. But line shopping is definitely important because I agree with you. I think the Matt LaFleur point is actually a really good one because we saw last year an offense that was struggling. And then with about 10 games left in the season, that thing just took off. It allowed them to finish 9th in percentage of drives that ended a score, 5th in expected points contributed by offense. Love finished with finished 9th in passing success rate. Like we really started to see that offense start to click. And it does come down to like figuring things out. They're gonna have to do that again, especially in the running game, I think, with AJ Dillon not being around. What that defense is going to look like. They're going through a transition with Jeff Happily hopping over from the college ranks, which I know people are a little worried about, but like the guy has spent some time in the NFL on defensive staffs. I think it's going to be just fine. Like if it was a head coach making his debut from college to the NFL, all right, maybe I'd be like, what the hell is happening here? But I think from a defensive coordinating standpoint, it'll be fine. The Eagles' concern I have in this game, and it's why I'm almost trending towards an over here, is Vic Fangio takes over defensively. Great mind, but we have seen his defenses get off to some very slow starts because there's a lot of miscommunicating in the secondary due to some concepts that are, I'm not going to say difficult to grasp, but just rely on a lot of communication. And that tends to get a little rough in a first game. You're in another country. What does your prep look like? So and offenses are tough that first week, but I'm with you. Like a field goal, maybe an over here is kind of where I'd be leaning as well. A game that's been on the move, Pats Bengals. This was at one point, I believe, as low as 6.5, but it has come up to 8.5, over under 41. A team going through a transition is definitely the New England Patriots. The Bengals, I'm going to say this right off the bat because I've gotten some flack from Bengals fans. We have not been a Zach Taylor podcast, but I think what he showed last season, all right, I'm bought in now. I think what he did when Joe Burrow got hurt, enabling to keep that team from not completely falling apart offensively was impressive. And you have a New England Patriots team. We know the story there. Bill Belichick is out. The cabinet is pretty bare. In steps Drake May, but he's not playing right now, which is an interesting vibe. What do you have on this one right here?
This is a tough game because it's like, 8.5 point spread week 1. I get scared because you just never really know what's going to happen week 1. But at the same time, it's like, how is New England going to score? What are they going to do? I mean, Mayo's saying Drake May is the better quarterback, but he's not starting. I don't really know what that means.
What the hell does that mean?
It's the strangest thing I've ever heard. So I just think the Bengals, they're obviously the way more put together team right now. I'll go with Cincinnati. A lot of people are taking Cincinnati as their survivor pick. I don't know if I'd want to burn them this quickly, but if you want your guarantee, I think that's probably it for week 1.
I don't disagree. Bengals do get off to a slow start, but they're playing the Patriots, who have only skated by, and I'm not skating by is giving them too much credit. Like this has been a bad team, but really they've skated by because Bill Belichick is arguably one of the greatest defensive minds we've ever seen. And what he's been able to do in conjuring up some incredible defensive performances to, ease the fact that the offense has stunk the last couple of years. I mean, the expectation has to be the Patriots defense is dropping off a little bit here. And if you have a camp where there have been times where the Joe Milton experience was in full effect and people are like, is this guy going to be our starter? You've got Drake May, who's apparently outperformed all of them, but is not starting. You have Jacoby Brissett somehow still playing in this league as a starter. It doesn't make any sense. I like this more in your teaser bet kind of for week 1, like teeing the Bengals down, there are some question marks defensively in pieces and how they're going to fit. You have Jamar Chase, who missed a lot of time, lower leg injury potentially coming here soon, aka hamstring, because we tend to always see that. Hopefully not. My question though for the Bengals: do we mark Joe Burrow's injury-prone quarterback now? Like, is it that time to put that tag on him? Because if it's not, it seems to be getting pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically, one more like kind of confusing injury away from definitely being marked as that. Yeah, like he's right on the cusp. I mean, if you're going to call him that, I'm not going to be like, no, you're wrong. But like, if it happens again, like within like in September, Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I feel like that's starting to try, and not his fault. I mean, injuries are never really a player's fault.
Right.
But, like, this is
Yeah.
a guy who clearly tries to keep himself in good shape, a worker type of guy. But like, man, this dude, the injury bug cannot escape him here in
Yeah.
Cincy. So we'll see. Cardinals Bills lines at 6.5, over under 47. We talked about this a lot. Last year, my take was the Buffalo Bills are turning into that early 2000s Chargers, Philip Rivers, Schottenheimer type team. You can never truly say the window is shut on a team that has Josh Allen as your quarterback, but a lot of transition here, especially from a player personnel standpoint in Buffalo. What do we make of this outcome? Look for the season for the Bills, and then I guess more importantly, this game. But like, where are we at with the Buffalo Bills?
The Bills, I mean, they're tough, but at the end of the day, there's Patrick Mahomes, and then in my eyes, not everyone agrees with this. In my eyes, Mahomes is in his own class. Josh Allen's right here in his own class too. I know people like Burrow and Lamar Jackson. I get it, but they are not in those, boom, boom, and then there's the rest, in my opinion. So as long as Josh Allen is healthy and playing football, to me, there will always be a contender. But they're also, we've seen it before. They're going to drop some duds where we're just like, what the hell just happened? And you never know when it's going to happen. So putting 6.5 on team that you just like, who can literally, we've seen them lose. Like, I think it was like 2 years ago, they lost to like a terrible Jacksonville team. They dropped a dud last year. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take Arizona. I don't do that with much confidence. But I got to see this Bills team. I mean, he's throwing a Curtis Samuel, he's throwing a Keon Coleman. I need to see what that offense is going to look like.
I think that's the biggest point is what is this offense going to look like outside of the tight end position, which I have all the confidence in the world that that is a really strong room, arguably up there is the best tight end room in the NFL. So like those weapons are good, but to your point, what does the wide receiver room look like? Like Coleman, I think is a fantastic prospect, but he's exactly that, a prospect. Like his wide receiver route tree is a little limited. Like you can make the argument he was underused at Florida State, but he's a guy who has a lot of upside, but like, how does his development look like? What does the run game look like? Can Cook hit the ground running as hard as he did last season? Defensively, tons of transition there. As far as play, I mean, you have DeMar Hamlin as your starting safety. Look, the guy's got a nice story. Fantastic that we didn't see a tragedy play out on the field, and he's been able to recover the way he's been able to recover. But like him being your starting safety gives me a little pause as to what that back end of the secondary can look like. So there's just tons of question marks left and right with this Bills team.
Yes, absolutely agree.
And I kind of lean with you. Cardinals underdogs just eat in the first week one. So not a terrible look. Texans Colts line is at 3, over under 48.5. The Texans, obviously the surprise of last season. This was a team that had a ton of ups and downs, especially in the offensive line. They were the most injured offensive line in the league last year. They had 10 different players log 200 snaps on that offensive line, and yet they were the surprise of the season. CJ Stroud comes in, hits the ground running. They make a push in the playoffs, beat the Browns, have themselves a very nice season. Going against a Colts team that it's got some question marks, I would say. What are your thoughts about either of these two teams long-term or just within this game?
So this is like, in my opinion, probably the best 1 o'clock game on the slate. The Colts, they don't seem like much, but they win that last game against Houston last year, and we're kind of like flipping this whole script on the way we're looking at these teams, even though they didn't do it with their rookie quarterback. But they were a huge surprise last year as well. And it's just funny looking at this because last year we would have been like, this is the worst game of the weekend. But this is, in my opinion, the best 1 o'clock game. This is one of my favorite games too. I just really like this Houston team. They're so talented. I mean, I forgot Joe Mixon was even on the team. I was just like, they have Joe Mixon. I was like, oh my gosh, this team is really talented. So this might be my favorite game. I like them at 3. So I go Houston. They're just top to bottom. That offense is very talented. They got a good defense too. I mean, they're a dark horse Super Bowl contending team.
Yeah, they'll be interesting. I want to see how this offense, if they can take over the long term, I'm not speaking specifically in this game, can take that next step, because Bobby Slovic was a head scratching coordinator for me at times. Because you talk about that last game of the season, it was baffling, the offense they ran in that game. And it's what led me to placing a pretty solid wager on the Browns. And then they come out in that Browns game and they do everything right from a play calling standpoint. They're not running into heavy boxes. They're being aggressive with CJ Stroud and taking shots downfield. It was very up and down. So he's a young coordinator. Let's see if that can get a little bit better. They ran into early boxes at a pretty hefty rate in the first half of games last season. Let's see if they allow CJ Stroud to be a little bit more aggressive in early games. This was I knew that it was around this stat, but because when Anthony Richardson was drafted, I said, this guy just hasn't played enough ball. And you could tell at Florida because he had one pass and it was a dart. There was never ever really any touch on it. He couldn't lob it over a linebacker. Anthony Richardson, since high school, has only logged 17 starts as a quarterback. This man just hasn't played enough football. The talent's there, but could you imagine being in your second year in the NFL, and since you were in high school, you've only played in 17, you started in 17 football games?
That's crazy. No, I didn't even know that. And that's insane. Yeah, and he's like 24 years old. That's crazy.
Like what is happening here? I mean, he's got all the talent in the world, but once again, he just hasn't. And you saw it in the preseason. He's not picking up coverage as well. He's slow to read some things. And I think a lot of this just comes down to the fact that he just hasn't played a lot of football in his life. And quarterback's one of those positions where you have to play to get better. This isn't like a defensive lineman where just freak athleticism can get you by on things. Yep. You got to play. You got to see things. There's got to be a lot of repetition and timing. So it'll be interesting to see what that season develops for the Colts. But I'm with you there. Jacksonville Dolphins, lines at 3.5, over under 49. Gonna have a little weather here. It's gonna be hot. We've both been to that Miami stadium. They built that thing beautifully because it just absolutely rains down the sun on the visiting side of that stadium. I mean, it is scorching there. And then the Dolphins home side gets a nice little shade. So that's a factor. The Dolphins are a big time weather team. We know under 70 degrees, they turn into popsicles, which is always an interesting little fact. 5-17 against the number when the degree drops below 70. Against a Jacksonville team that they feel like a team in no man's land right now. Where are you at with this game and these teams kind of long term?
So I know I said I actually forgot about this game. Last game was my favorite. I take that back. This is my favorite. This to me is boat race city. The Dolphins, they're kind of they just, as you said about the weather and everything, they are a September, October team. This Dolphins team, I haven't even looked at their schedule. They'll probably start off like a good 5-1 or something. This is a game where I would maybe even take an alt spread if you'd want to look at like a 5, just to juice it a bit more. But this is the type of Dolphin. They're a type of team that likes to come out early and just boat race teams. That doesn't now don't let that get in your head like we always let it get in our heads, and then November we still think they're really really good. But yeah, to me right now this is going to be a blowout.
The best part of that too is how is Jacksonville even guarding this team early when everybody's still healthy? Tyreek doesn't have any tread on his tires right now. That offense is just ready to rock and roll. From a coaching standpoint, it's brilliant offensive game planning, just week in and week out. And Jacksonville Jaguars, apparently a big part of their strategy this season is to play a lot of man.
Oh,
why would you do that if that's the case in Miami? I mean, we'll see if maybe they're just kind of putting out there that, give them a little head fake here. But if that is legit your strategy coming into the season, this game is not going to go the way you want it to. And then you have Trevor Lawrence on the other side, who this is a quarterback. We flagged this when he got drafted. He's a man in college. He suffered with pressure, especially up the middle. The dichotomy in his numbers between when he's kept clean and when he's under pressure, and that happens with quarterbacks in the NFL. Everybody's great without pressure, but he has a massive dropout. I mean, he's outside the top 30 in virtually every metric from a quarterback standpoint when facing pressure. So that will be an interesting one to watch because I don't really know how I feel about this Jacksonville offensive line coming into the season.
Right.
My question, though, for the Dolphins long term, you hit it on the end. We know how brilliant of a play caller they have there in Miami. We know that they have talent, but are they is there something to this? They're just too soft because it is crazy the weather. And let me preface this. These men are tougher than I will ever be in my life. Everybody in the NFL is incredibly tough. That's not the point here, but there's levels to it in the NFL, right? The Baltimore Ravens are a different team from a toughness scale point than the Miami Dolphins. There's a reason those Pittsburgh Ravens games were electric back in the day. There are levels to this. Is the dynamic just a little too much of maybe I don't want to say a little too soft, but kind of just a little too soft to compete late into seasons.
It does seem like there is some sort of element to that. They don't have any sort of, receivers or really any sort of skill position players that, you look at them and you're just like, well, that guy's an animal. As in terms of like physically dominating. Tyreek Hill can run past anyone. So can Jalen Waddle. So can Devin Achane. So can Mostert. I mean, they all are blazing speed, and they're all very good players. But yeah, there is something. You know, they're not really a ground and pound team, not a physical team. Their wide receivers aren't going to be making super physical blocks in the run game. So yeah, there is a sense of that.
Yeah, and I do wonder if it starts like I like Mike McDaniels. He's a phenomenal play caller, brilliant
Good
guy.
start there. Yeah.
But I do think it starts there with the kind of energy he brings to this team. And it is a more relaxed environment from everything that's been like they talk about the dichotomy in different, like when they do these joint practices, how the Dolphins are in sweatpants and other teams are in full pads. And like it's just a very different, it's a very different atmosphere. And I do wonder if that plays a role into this. When the weather drops and you get into the late part of your season, the Dolphins just seemingly fall apart at the seams every year.
Yep.
A team that will never be accused of lacking toughness, but brains might be a part of this. The Pittsburgh Steelers take on the Falcons, lines at 3.5. And I do not know for the life of me how you watch Russell Wilson at this point in his career and go, you know what? That's our starting quarterback. What is going on in Pittsburgh?
I don't know. Unfortunately, I've already looked at my schedule, their schedule. I'm like, by the time we get Pittsburgh, I'm sure Justin Fields is going to be playing because
Yeah.
I want to play against Russell Wilson. Yeah, this is it's not good in Pittsburgh. But at the end of the day, they still have TJ Watt. They still have a pretty talented team, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They have great coaching. And you give me 3 and a hook going against a Falcons team, which I think could make some noise this year for sure. If they're smart and they use their players correctly, which I think they will. They now have a quarterback who's capable.
Yeah.
But you give me 3 and a hook here, week one. Steelers, they always find a way. So I'll take Pittsburgh. I don't think they win this game, but I do think it's probably going to be about a field goal game.
I agree. Pittsburgh is a one that I have actually put money on at 3.5 with a hook. There's too much new in Atlanta right now. I like what they're building towards, but it's week one. It's a new coaching staff. It's a new quarterback. It's a whole new philosophy from a standpoint, philosophical standpoint. Like Raheem Morris, I like him. He was just a little too young and green when he took over my Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but overall, I think he's a good mind from a coaching standpoint. If this game was played later in the season, maybe it's a little different. I hate that Russell Wilson is still the quarterback from a betting standpoint because like he is cooked at this point. Not as a human, he's fine, whatever. But like as far as me holding a Steelers ticket on a Sunday afternoon, I don't know if there's going to be a ton of those opportunities this season. This is probably going to be one of them because exactly what you said. Defensively, it's solid. It's familiar. Like they're going to be able to play fast and downhill with an offense and the Falcons that are still trying to figure out how to play with each other, timing, rhythm, all that good stuff. So I did wager on the Steelers as well. To the Tennessee Titans, Chicago. This line has been moving around. There have been 4.5 popping. It's at 3.5 right now. Over under 44.5. Now, while we did talk about the Bears, there is a stat here to keep in mind. There have been 27 number one overall picks at QB since the merger. They are 4-22-1 straight up. They are 7-10 against the spread in week one games. David Carr is the last, David, not Derek. David Carr is the last one to straight up win a game one as a starter, number one pick, and that was in 2002. And in come the Tennessee Titans as the underdog. What do we make of this game?
Yeah, it's funny actually. When you brought this up, I started Googling because I did hear that stat. I was like number one pick QB week one record because I couldn't remember what it was. That is crazy, first of all. Just because there's been a lot of number two quarterbacks who have won week one.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's very weird.
Yes. Read into it as you will, but it's just
Yeah.
it was a notable stat worth throwing out.
It's very strange how that has just worked out. I think Caleb, I think he is able to buck that trend here, but it's gonna be a tough game. The Titans, they're top three secondary in the NFL. They're deep in the secondary. So that's a strength versus strength. I don't know how their running game is going to be. I don't even know who's going to run the ball. I don't know who their lead back is going to be.
Questions.
And they've got some good weapons on in wide receiver. They could be an interesting team. I don't really know what to make of them. I don't love Will Levis. I'll probably go with the Bears here, but this is a game I'm probably not going to bet. I'm not confident, but I'm not confident with that hook. Yeah, I don't know.
This is one where I'm going to take a shot for an underdog in week 1 in the Tennessee Titans at 3.5 with the hook. Hook is very important in another. You can also add them to teaser legs and tease them up. I think would be just fine as well. But my concern coming into this game is what Brian Callahan, the offense or the head coach, is going to be, because he decides he wants to play, because he is deciding. Wow, it's week 1, folks. He has decided that he wants to be a play caller. He wasn't a play caller in Cincinnati. He was under Zach Taylor. That makes me a little bit nervous. You have a first-year head coach who's also for the first time playing calls as an offense. But let's see what this looks like. I actually think the Titans are going to be the pleasant surprise in the AFC South, a garbage division, by the way. My NFC South is what I said, NFC South. In the AFC South, in my NFC South is the worst division in football. I'm not going to sit here and try to argue that, but because we're so bad, the AFC South gets a pass. That league is just garbage right now. Yeah, league. I'm messing up division. My goodness, this clip isn't going on the internet. But I do think that there could be some potential upside here because the offensive line, I think, is going to be pretty nice. The secondary for this Titans team, like you said, they add Snead. The Chiefs are going to miss him. Rounds that out really nicely. They bring in Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd with Hopkins, who seemingly has not fallen off a cliff yet. Will Levis is a worker. He's got a big arm. He was really good on early downs. The problem was Titans were just a run-heavy team last season, so they constantly were putting him in bad 3rd and longs, and he was atrocious there. So let's see if Bill or Brian can be a little bit more aggressive on first down, let Will Levis kind of open it up a little bit, because he did show very well there. Like, he's a top 15 quarterback metrically on first and second down when throwing the ball. Let's see if they don't put him in bad 3rd down position. But I think he'll be, I don't want to say he's going to be a top guy, because he's not going to be that. He's not even going to be a top 15 guy. But that like 25 to 16 range, I think Will Levis is going to float around in that range this year, maybe fringe 15 by the end of it, but it's going to require an offensive scheme that allows him to be a little bit more aggressive and play to his strengths, as opposed to putting him in bad and 3rd and longs and all your play calls are short of the sticks. Like, you just can't do that again this year with the weapons you have. Panthers, Saints. Line is at 4, over under 41.5. The Saints are the favorite here. The Panthers have been a pick that people are trending a lot here. New coach, Dave Canales, comes over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are starting to say, is he the QB whisperer? Because he gets average to below average quarterbacks to play above their means. Can he do that with Bryce Young? The Saints are sort of in no man's land, it feels like. They're still an organization, I guess. Where are we at with this in this game?
Yeah, this is probably the worst game of the weekend. Let's be honest here. Shout out to your NFC South division. I probably just go Panthers here. I think there's just a little bit more rah-rah going on with that team, and I think that kind of means something in week 1. I think the Saints are the better team. They'll probably win the game, but I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, if Carolina went in there and won. But I still think Carolina is a bottom 3 team in the NFL, without a doubt.
I agree. I'm taking the Panthers here as well, +4. It's the whole situation, like the whole NFC South is bad. But I do think they hang in there. I do think they get a bump. I do think, for all his shortcomings, Canales does a good job of scheming things up to not put his quarterbacks in bad positions. So I'm with you there. Vikings, Giants, lines at 1.5, over under 41. The Vikings are the most cursed franchise, it feels like, at this point. I don't even like JJ McCarthy had more than 9 dropbacks and his just leg exploded. Didn't do a whole lot of that at Michigan, but here we are. And then the Giants, oh good God. I don't even know what to do with these two teams. I got nothing for this game. It's just like plug your nose and see what comes up the other end.
It's bad. Yeah, I would say Malik Neighbors, over 70 yards is +115. He's going to get 30% of the share load on this team. Brian Dable is coaching for his life. He's just going to have Daniel Jones just throw Malik Neighbors the ball 100,000 times. So I like over 70 for +115. If you want over 80, that's +175. So I don't know. I would look into that. I think Malik Neighbors is going to be nasty.
Love that. He is their offense. Like, they've been very apparent about that. Without him, they have nothing going for them.
Right.
I agree with that. All right. Broncos, Seahawks, lines at 6, over under 41.5. Oof. Two teams. I don't know what to make of the Broncos right now. Like,
I don't either.
it's I think their floor is a little bit higher than when people expect, but I don't know where the ceiling is for this team because it's not high, but I don't
No.
know how low it is. That's the problem. Because I do think, Bo Nix is going to do a good job of not putting the ball into harm's way. He's a relatively
Right.
conservative quarterback. We'll see. Is there anything to make out of this game?
Nothing major. I mean, it's a bit of a bigger spread. I don't think the Seahawks are great, and I obviously I don't think the Broncos are very good at all. But I'm just surprised it's at 6. So I'd probably go with the Broncos.
I'm with you. It feels like this is one of those plays where it's like it's week one, it's underdog season in the early part of the year. For bettors out there, they're like, that's not great logic, Nate. I was like, well, it's been profitable so far. We'll see. I just don't have much on it. Raiders, Chargers, lines at 3, over under 40. Chargers are the favorite. I feel like the Chargers are a year away from being anything really threatening in the league because there is so much change there. But the Raiders, oof, man, this is a friend. I feel like this, if things go south early, I think they're about to go south real hard. Like this feels like a franchise about to explode.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that. I don't know if you watched the show Receiver on Netflix, but Devontae Adams hates it there. That's
Yeah,
clear as
he
day.
might not be there by mid-season with the way it is.
He hates it there. And I mean, whatever. I don't really like how he was basically acting like the team is trying out for him, but whatever. I
Yeah,
mean, I was like, okay, Devontae, whatever. I guess you're bigger than the Raiders, but yeah, he's not happy there.
no, this is a situation. The Chargers are an interesting one because Greg Roman comes in, which makes sense with what Hardball is trying to do out there. Like he's trying to zag when everybody's zigging. I mean, we're spreading things out. We're a real pass heavy league. Defenses are getting lighter to try to combat this, and he's going power run football. We saw this in Baltimore though with Lamar. Greg Roman is really good from a running game standpoint, but you have Justin Herbert. You have to offer something from a passing game standpoint. And I just don't know what that's going to look like schematically with Greg Roman at the reins. Because while he's a great run coordinator, I don't love him as your OC. But this
No.
is what they're trying to do. They're trying to line it up and pound the rock, but you have to be able to offer something in the form of a threat from a passing standpoint. We know that in this league.
You have one of the most prolific passers in the game.
Yeah.
Use it.
Yep. And Greg Roman's not going to do that. So have fun with that. But I feel like next year they could potentially be better. I think this is going to be a very up and down year for the Chargers. There are going to be weeks where they look great and there's going to be weeks where they look like absolute used bathwater. Um Cowboys Browns lines at 2.5, over under 41. I am contemplating a win total under for the Browns. I think the Browns are about to absolutely implode on themselves. This is an offensive line that now has lost their offensive line coach. Starting left tackle's gone. Who knows what Nick Chubb's going to look like this season? Watson, we've talked about it. It's not worth kind of continuing to repeat it, but it's the worst contract in all of sports. I think at this point, there's a leadership void there. Jameis Winston might be stepping in at some point here. Like there's rumors that they were already trying to trade him off the team. Um, it, it, it's bad. I mean, there are rumors swirling that, Watson is not really wanted by the coaching staff or players, but the front office is just so bought in on it at this point that they're continuing to kind of shove it down their throats. Like this feels like a situation, and Kevin Stefanski is a guy that I love. I'm super high on. I don't think he's an elite coach, but I think he's in that tier right below the elites, like in that top tier because of what
Yeah.
he was able to get out of this team last year. But it feels like this is the season where it just turns into the Browns are going to brown. It feels like.
Yeah, it kind of does. It's just been a disaster. At this point, I can't even remember. When was Deshaun Watson last good? 21?
God, it's been a long time.
I don't even remember. Like it's been a long time since Deshaun Watson's been good at quarterback. And there are so many examples of QBs that were like good and then just like Carson Wentz. It's like it's not coming back. It's
Nope,
gone.
it's gone.
Um, I tend to think for Deshaun, I mean, unless we see something real early this year, it's gone.
Yep.
It's been too long. You missed too many games. You've like forgotten how to play. It's kind of like in the UFC when they don't fight and they come back, they usually lose.
Yep.
It's just you need to be out there. So yeah, I kind of agree with your Browns take. I like Dallas here. I kind of like Dallas, honestly, on the money line, for being honest.
I'm with you. I don't know what the Dallas run game is going to look like because that running back room might be the worst in the nation, but
Yeah, it's bad.
it's bad. But outside of that, I think the team is pretty decent for a game like this, and in the context of the NFC, is a pretty good team. Here's my Cowboys take. I've been saying this all offseason, and now Greeny on ESPN's taking my take. Yes, he heard it from me, and he stole the take. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be the starting quarterback for the Cowboys next year. I think my take was if they didn't get the deal worked out before week 1 for Dak, that they were going to let the season kind of play out as is and then kind of move on potentially, which I don't know if it's the smartest move, but Mike McCarthy's in a contract year. I think he's gone regardless, unless they win a Super Bowl, and that ain't happening, I don't think.
Right.
And even though Dak's a good option, I do wonder if Jerry Jones is sitting there going, whew, Shadeur's coming out of college this year, could be primetime 2.0. And I don't think Deion's going to leave, but we might be able to sway Deion to the NFL. I don't think they are. And I'm not saying these are good football decisions. I'm just thinking, from the perspective of Jerry Jones, who loves more to stay in the media cycle than he does winning games. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity here that Shedeur Sanders is starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys next season.
I don't hate it.
My hot take. We'll see.
It's not a terrible take, and I mean it would be something Jerry would do at this point. You're right. Jerry is more interested in like the celebrity aspect of being an NFL owner, GM, whatever the hell he is.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, but yeah, I don't hate that take at all. I like that.
Yeah, if they didn't get the deal done in camp, I was like, I think they're going to let this play out and see if they can weasel their way. Now, if they're outside of being able to get Shedeur, then that's a different story. But if things start to fall apart here, that might be a move. Commanders Bucks are lovely two teams. Lines at 3.5, over under 42.5. I say that more jokingly about my team than yours because I actually have some optimism for your team this year. There are professionals in the building for the first time in a long time, and that's why I think I'm a little bit more optimistic. Is like how much worse could it get when there's actual adults in the room from an ownership standpoint, from a coaching standpoint. My Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were a team that was constantly needing third down variants to win football games last year. That is like playing Russian roulette in this league. You can't rely on that from year to year. What do you make of this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be tough. I think this game, if we were to meet in like 6 weeks, I would actually feel really confident with the Bucks. I just think there's some areas where a lot of our strengths, like Mike Evans, is going to dominate this game.
Yeah,
I mean, our secondary is so weak; it's terrible. So take Mike Evans. He's played the Commanders 5 times. He has over 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. I like Mike Evans in a touchdown. I just think, the only thing really going for us right now is kind of the fear of the unknown. We don't really know what's going to happen with Jaden. We have no idea what this offense is going to look like. We have more of an idea what Bucks are going to bring. But I just think, honestly, I think we have a lot of like where your strengths are matched up with our weaknesses. So I don't like this matchup for us. So I think the Bucks win and cover the spread in this game.
I don't hate it. I'm not going to fight you on it. I don't disagree. I'm and we're back. I had a little cut off on the feed. It's right as we're talking about my Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are interesting. I'm in a weird spot as a fan because I got my Super Bowl with Tom Brady. And I just am like, whatever. These are my whatever years at this point. Because I know Todd Bowles is not a serious coach as far as like winning anything major. Baker's not a serious quarterback for winning anything major. But like, I like both of them. I love the fiery quarterback that I got in Baker Mayfield. He's fun to root for. And Todd Bowles frustrates the hell out of me at times because he's super conservative offensively. Like he definitely puts some handcuffs on his offensive coordinators. But like, whatever. Like we're just a competitive team in and out. And it's just a fun hanging out type of football team.
I would agree with that. Baker is a lot of fun. He is really fun to root for. I didn't follow their training camp at all, but I did know that during the offseason workouts, Baker was warming up with the defense. And just as a quarterback, that really made me laugh. I'm just thinking that a quarterback's just like, yeah, I want to go warm up with the dogs over the defense. That just makes me love Baker. I don't know why I found that to be so funny, but I did.
I absolutely love Baker. Like I have no problem with the fact that like I don't really have an elite quarterback that's ever going to lead me to the promised land at this point because I'm just like, whatever. Like I just I wish he was better, but I just know what he is and I just enjoy him for what he is. Like that's all. He doesn't frustrate me like Jameis Winston does because he doesn't throw a bajillion picks. Like he definitely throws some dumb ones where you're like, Baker, what the hell were you doing? But it's not a bajillion of them. So it's more relaxing to watch. But yeah, he's awesome. I just love rooting for him. And the Browns really, they messed they messed up that situation because I do think they would have a little bit more success. The style of football they play is very conducive to what Baker can succeed in and be better, and it was a much better option than Deshaun. That
Yeah,
looking back,
100% true.
yeah, you got to be like, we really screwed the pooch there.
Definitely did. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, like, oh, heavy tight end sets with a good run game, a lot of play action and motion. Yeah, Baker's a fringe 15 type of guy, and you can win a lot. Look at the Lions. Jared Goff is winning them a lot of football games right now, and he isn't, elite of the elite. So there's something there to that.
Very true.
Speaking of Jared Goff, Los Angeles Rams versus the Lions. Line is at 4.5, over under 52. This trade, these two guys are linked together till the end of time. Stafford and Goff, you get the switch there. This is in Detroit. Keep that in mind. Dome. We know that Jared Goff does much better in a dome atmosphere. The California boy does not like playing outside. What do we make of this game? What do we make of these two franchises and kind of the directions they are heading in overall?
Um, we always kind of think the Rams are going to be like not very good, and then they're just good because they have good coaching. Overall good players. I think the Rams could be kind of sneaky as long as health is huge. Health is huge for, Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do. I heard that Kyron Williams was like returning punts and returning kicks. You never know what that team is going to do at running back ever. I could see Blake Corum literally leading this team in rushing attempts and rushing yard, everything. So yeah, it's so hard to figure out what you're gonna get with the Rams. The Lions, though, you know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a team that's ready. They're here. They're fun to watch. They haven't won yet, so it's not like we're getting tired of them. We're actually all rooting for them. Where it's not like it's the Chiefs. We're like, all right, we've seen it now. Okay, we're done with it. So we're still, America seems to kind of be behind Detroit. I'll take the Lions here, but I do actually think the Rams, they're such a toss-up. I think they could be a good team this year.
Yeah, this is an interesting. I don't love the way this total is heading because I liked it earlier in the week when it's lower because I do think the Lions are going to carve up the Rams. Just defensively, there's too many like question marks, and offensively, you have arguably the best offensive line in the NFL in the Detroit Lions. You have good weapons. You have Jared Goff playing inside. Ben Johnson is really good. Uses a lot of motion, play action. You have Dan Campbell, who I think we all love him because he is all of us on the couch on a Sunday. Like, fuck it, go for it. And he actually does. And it's like, I love this about him. Defensively, they got DJ Reader over on the defensive line. That was already a good stuff unit last year. And then you upgrade the secondary a little bit. You spend some assets in the draft. You go get Carlton Davis from my Bucks, who, like, I'm going to tell you right now, like, he's a decent player, Lions fans. Let's not expect him to fix all your problems. He's probably also going to deal with an injury at some point in the season, but he does help elevate that room a little bit. So I do think the Lions are going to score points, which is going to make the Rams need to like open up their passing game. So I really like the total earlier in the week at 52. I don't know how I feel so much about that, but I do like the Lions here. I have placed a bet on them this week, even at the 4.5. I don't love 4.5. It feels a little like no man's land, but I did place a wager on them because I just think offensively there's too much of an edge compared to where the Rams defense is right now. And then the Rams offensive line's got a lot of reshuffling going on due to some injuries and needing to get guys. Like, I think the offensive line for the Rams will be fine overall, LA fans, the 5 of you out there. But, it could be a little rough week 1 sledding in Detroit for a fan base that is very fired up for the outlook of what this season could be in a once again down NFC.
Mm-hmm.
We wrap up the week with Jets 49ers, lines at 4.5, over under 43.5. I talked about it earlier. I think this is the year the 49ers wheels sort of fall off the bus from an injury standpoint long term. But I also sort of feel that way about the Jets. The Jets I feel bad for the Jets because I can relate to this. Not really, because my quarterback didn't get hurt and we won a Super Bowl, but I can relate to it in the fact that the first year Tom Brady came over, every game, we talked about this week in, week out, how nervous I was that he just had to stay healthy till the playoffs. And if he could do that, we were going to win the Super Bowl. But if he got hurt in that first year, the second year, it didn't matter. It was over because we were just going to be off by small inches. I think that's what the Jets have here. I think last year was it. I think this is just a year too far removed for Aaron Rodgers. We know football is a game of inches, and it's not that they're going to be bad. It's just in the games when the margin for error are smaller against elite talent towards the end of the season, they're just going to be off by that small little margins of error, that small little inches, and it's just over. That's my take on the Jets this year.
I kind of agree with that. The Jets are a weird team. I think, yeah, like, excuse me, last year was kind of it for Rodgers. He was already kind of looking a little, a little downhill to begin with. Now he missed the entire year with an Achilles injury. That has me very concerned. And then also there's I never understand the NFL like coaching and anything. Like last year, week 17, I guess it's week 18 now. They're like, let's give Brees Hall, our incredible running back, already off injured guy. Let's give him like 42 touches in week 18 when we're totally that was just the strangest thing ever. I know I'm going back like 8 months, but that was just so weird. I was like, what is this team doing? But yeah, I'm with you. I'm not necessarily rooting for this. I know he's a very polarizing person, but I don't let that type of thing really bother me. I'm not rooting for Rodgers to play bad. I don't think he's going to play bad, but I don't think it's going to be the Aaron that we've seen before. I think we're going to start seeing, kind of like we saw with Drew Brees. We really saw it with Peyton, but like more kind of what we saw kind of with Drew Brees, where it's like, this is starting to fade here.
Yep. And we even saw it, like Tom was still playing really well, but we started to see it there too a little bit. Yeah, you could start to, and that's where the point. I don't think the Jets are going to be bad. I think they're going to be a very good football team. It's just in a division and in an AFC that is so competitive. I just think it's a year too late at this point to really get it. And they're going to have a really good defense once again. Like Saleh, no matter what you think of him as a head coach, he's a fantastic defensive minded guy. His defense is always rocking and rolling. He's really good there schematically. Like they're going to have a good defense. They're going to be good. It's just those small inches you need to win games, that small margin of error. I feel like it's just going to be there. Like the ball's going to sail a little bit too much, or it's going to be on the throne or whatever. It's just not there. But for this game, that doesn't really answer any of our questions. For me, this is a lot of wait and see, but I think I do lean Jets at 4.5 because the 49ers had so much chaos in their preseason. It's just not a lot of time to gel. And I know a lot of the pieces have been around that organization for a while, but it's still, we see this every year. Teams get off to sluggish starts because the preseason is not what it used to be. And when you have too much time off and guys aren't showing up for camp and there's contract disputes and all that, they're becoming an issue. And the other thing, I'm flagging this now because it was part of my wheels are going to fall off. The 49ers have done a great job of building frontline talent, but you really take a look at that depth chart. There are some positions there where it is a no man's land of talent after that starting guy. Like it's not good because they just don't have the resources because they're so front loaded.
They're incredibly front loaded. Like you just keep wondering, the 49ers paid someone else. Like where are they getting this money? Well, because they're not paying anyone else.
Yeah, depth in a sport that is an attrition sport. It's not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. Like there is a difference here. Basketball is a contact sport. Football is a collision sport, and like you need depth to really make runs at things, and they don't have it. So yeah, I think I'm on the Jets at 4.5 just because it is week 1. If this was like week 8 and both teams were really healthy, different story. But like, I think week 1, I am on the Jets here at 4.5.
Yep.
All right, that does it for week 1. All the games. God, we need bye weeks more than anything. It's just I love it because it's so much football. But at the same time, when we're doing a show, it's like, good God, we need a bye week in here somewhere. Any final thoughts before we wrap up week 1 of the NFL schedule?
Nothing major. The teams I really like. I like the Texans. I like the Dolphins. I like the Lions, and then just real degen status here. I mean, I'm not. Everything's going to change a lot, but just looking ahead, that Saints Eagles game next week. That's at 3. I mean, I'm just saying.
That's a great move right there.
Philly, maybe look at Philly right now for week 2. Just saying. Yeah,
or watch that game closely. Make sure there's not an injury in the moment it finalizes, fire that bet in because, oh, good God. Yeah, that might turn into a college game. Like where the score is lopsided as all get out. I'm with you on a lot of those. I like the Steelers, as I said. Like the Titans. I like the Jets. Panthers, I think I'm going to throw in there as well. And then we might add some more on the socials, so make sure you're following Trophy Kids Pod, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all everywhere and anywhere. And that will do it for us. This was a little bit more just spur of the moment thoughts. We've done a lot of work in the preseason. It'll be a little bit more organized in the coming weeks, but it's week 1. It's a lot of our theories and predictions coming into the season looking about right. And week 1 in the NFL can get a little wacky. So don't overreact, just react. And we will see you next week. As always, peace.